I'm a lady who is now almost turning 40 years, and I still haven't figured out my purpose. I've worked for different companies and never enjoyed the corporate environment. So I left and started doing my own thing. I've done chickens, I've done sewing, horticulture, and now I have a tuck shop, but none of it looks like my purpose. The only thing that is working in my life is my marriage and kids, but personally I feel so unfulfilled and lost. Please help me understand more about purpose. Hello guys, welcome to yet another episode of Answers, and today I am so excited because I have with me in the studio Tadzi Madzima.
Hi Regina.
Hi Tadzi, how are you? Good. Tadzi is an award-winning life coach, a champion for youth-led social innovation, and she is the founder of the Ignite Youth organization. I am so happy that she's here because I've been following her on social media and she talks a lot about issues to do with purpose, and I have seen that you guys have been posting, you've been sending to us inquiries about, finding your purpose. What is my purpose? I would like to know more about, is this really my purpose or not? So she's here to shed more light on that topic, and I know that we're going to add value to the conversation. So welcome, Tadzi.
Thank you so much, Regina. Thank you so much for this platform. I'm really honored.
Okay, so let's talk about your name first. Tadzi, is it full or it's a nickname?
No, it's a nickname. My full name is Tadzi. Madzima is my surname. Yeah.
So Tadzi Madzima. All right, because everywhere I was looking for your full name, but I
you were trying to find it.
Like, is it Tadzi? Is it the full name? But I looked everywhere. I was like, okay.
It's
So
my
let's
great
just keep
grandmother's
it.
name.
Oh, all right. Oh no, that's great. So Ignite Youth organization, tell us what do you do?
So what we do is we help young people to discover their purpose and pursue it with passion. So our goal is really to provide a purpose-centered approach to career guidance for young people. So we are providing career guidance, but through a purpose lens, because we've realized that there's a chance for young people to pursue unfulfilling careers if it's not purpose-centered.
Okay, so you spoke about purpose. What is it really when we're looking at purpose-centered career? What is purpose in that context?
So purpose, generally, if we are to disconnect it from career, then I'll show how it's connected to career. Purpose is generally what you're supposed to do on this earth, the mark you're supposed to leave, what you're supposed to be remembered for, what you're created for, your calling. That's what it is. And everyone has it. But the thing is, the challenge is that many people don't discover it. Some might discover it later in life, but you find that a lot of people don't actually know what their purpose is. They just actually just go about in life without actually discovering why they're here on this earth. So when we're now merging purpose with career, we're now looking at it from the lens of, if I have a calling in my life, then I'm supposed to combine that with what I'm supposed to do on this earth. Because when we just look at career just generally, it does not actually, having a career does not necessarily lead to fulfillment, right? You can have a career, but it might not be a fulfilling career. So what we are saying is, we don't mind people pursuing careers, but we don't want people to pursue careers and live unfulfilled lives. So what we are saying to people is, find a way in which you can put your purpose and your career together so that it's a purpose-centered career where you're pursuing your career through a purpose lens.
That way you'll be fulfilled.
That's
you'll
where
actually
you'll
be
be fulfilled.
happy doing that. So how does someone discover this purpose now?
All right, so it varies, right? But one thing that I say to people is, purpose, the way I discover my purpose is different from how someone else will discover it. So don't feel like, oh, this person discovered their purpose, why am I failing to find my purpose? Because it's such a unique journey that you cannot compare. It's not a journey that you can compare, because the journey you're supposed to walk up in terms of discovering your purpose is different. But for example, one of the top things is prayer, praying and finding God, and praying and asking God for what is my purpose. Like praying about it actually can give you the answers, because He is the purpose giver. But you can also have people around you that can speak life into you. So for example, these are your friends, your family, people around you can actually tell you that, have you realized that you're good at this, that you're actually interested in these issues, that you are actually talented in this area? So sometimes you need people around you in order for you to actually realize, I think actually that I'm actually good in this thing. The third thing is, there's a process of self-discovery that you need to do yourself, which is to ask yourself certain questions of, what are the things that I care about in this world? What are the things that irk me, that frustrate me, that I want to fix? That, there's certain people who can just drive past street kids and say, shame man, I wish I could do something, and they move on. But then there's certain people who, for them, that's a big issue somehow. It's like something needs to be done about this issue of having kids living on the street, children living on the street. There's certain people who, it's such a burden for them, right? It's such a huge burden. So the things that burden you is a good sign. It's sort of like when you think about the things that become weighty, when you see them, you're like, this is too much. I don't want to leave this as it is. Those are some of the different ways in which you can discover your purpose.
So you spoke about the issue of actually helping maybe street kids.
Mm-hmm.
When you're now coming up with interventions or whatever ideas in that space, you're not doing it from the head, you're actually doing it from the heart, because there's something within you that is actually pushing you towards that particular agenda.
Exactly.
And there may be fulfillment, from that aspect. And also, the sad thing about it is, sometimes some of these issues, when you then ignore, you will always be discontent, because they will always be there in your face, and you will always feel unfulfilled. Because there's a specific area that you could be impacting, or that is really close to your heart. That you will always be in your face, but you can't do anything about. So I like that. And I love it when you said it's important, you spoke about prayer, to go back to the source, the person who created you, because and I think that is a very important point that needs to be noted, because when you create something, Tadzi, you always create it with an intention in mind.
Exactly.
Like you always have a purpose. You actually do it. Sometimes it actually starts with the purpose before you are created.
Exactly.
Someone has got an intention, they've got a purpose. They say, you know what? I actually need something that I can drink water from.
Exactly.
And then they create a cup.
Exactly.
So going back to the source is a very important way of discovering purpose, like what you said. So from that context, can we say purpose is something that you decide, or is something that is predefined?
It's definitely something that's predefined, because you don't choose the things that you care about. It's almost like God made you in a certain way. He put you together with all these different interests, skills, talents, and everything, so that you are able to pursue it. So you might think that, I actually care about children living on the streets because that's what I personally care about. It's just something that I started caring about. But you don't just start caring about things, because what makes you want to take care of that issue so much? It's something that was planted in you from the time, even the Bible says that He knew you when you were still in your mother's womb. God created you, so He knew what He was putting in you. So it's something that's in you, but sometimes what we end up doing is we shut down the voice. So I know what that means, because I shut down the voice quite a lot when it came to working with Ignite Youth Organization, because I asked a lot of questions. Like, I knew that I was supposed to work with young people, and I knew that I was supposed to help people discover their purpose, but I was scared. I was like, where is the money going to come from for me to run that organization? which NGOs are going to fund purpose. It's a very abstract concept. If you're going to look for donor funding, what they're asking for is, can we see that you do employment creation, job creation, entrepreneurship? They want something that's tangible. So when you go to funders and you say, I'm helping young people discover their purpose, they're like, we want something that is inclined to what makes sense in the donor world, in the development world, in the humanitarian world, where you're, for example, going and feeding people, and you're saying you're going into communities, you're going to orphanages. That's what makes sense. But then for me, it was a process of praying about it, because once I did discover that this is what I wanted to do, I had to now overcome the fear of pursuing it and trusting that God wanted me to do it. And I have a story on that where, for example, when I applied for the Mandela Washington Fellowship, the first couple of years that I applied for that fellowship, I didn't get in, because the first 2 times that I applied, I was applying underneath the work I'm doing with my organization. I'm doing it with Reach for Change, not Ignited organization, but with this other organization called Reach for Change. And it was really like, what can I say? With Reach for Change, I was working for this organization. Everything was going well, but the only challenge was that it wasn't what God wanted me to do. I prayed about it, and then God said to me, Tadzi, I want you to focus on Ignite. I want the application to be Ignite. And I said, I'm never going to get this fellowship whilst I'm focusing on Ignited organization. And the third time when I applied, God, I remember clearly God said, trust me in this. Those are just the words I heard, which is trust me in this. And then I applied the third time. I changed from my application being focused on Reach for Change, which was the organization I was working for, to Ignite Youth organization. And then I got accepted. And my doubt that that people would believe or want to support purpose for young people was then dismantled, because I realized that if God has given you that calling, He's gonna supply your needs in that calling. The challenge is, we think that if God has given me this calling, I have to figure it out on my own. But why would He give you something that He wants you to figure out on your own? He will provide those needs for you. So yeah, so that generally, I know it's a very complicated thing to ask people to pursue their purpose, because it's scary. Right? It's unfamiliar territory. There is no blueprint for pursuing purpose. There's a blueprint for education. In fact, there's a blueprint for life. If you look at it, there's a blueprint where you're born, you go to primary school, you go to secondary school, you go to college, you work, you get married, you probably buy a house or whatever, you have grandkids, and then you die. That's the blueprint that life has given us. But it doesn't work like that, right? That blueprint is not realistic. And so what ends up happening is, when things don't go according to the blueprint, we're like, what's going on? I thought that it was supposed to happen like this, but it only happens according to the way God wants it to happen. And there's no blueprint that will fit everyone. It's going to be different for everyone based on your calling and your purpose and what you're supposed to do in life.
So basically we are saying you really can't figure it out on your own at the end of the day, because only your Maker is the one who actually knows why you are here. And I respect that, because when you look at even the story of Moses in the Bible, you see one critical aspect of purpose, and that is when you look at yourself from your lens. You know, the way you evaluated yourself, Tadzi, when you were looking at how you thought you would succeed during the application process. Your own lens, your own view towards, you know, whatever it is that you thought was going to be the next place in terms of your success, because obviously the application has something to do with progression for yourself. But sometimes what looks like progress for us, or what looks like the next stepping stone for us towards our purpose, is not what God thinks, because God approached Moses. It's like, and He assigned him, but such a big assignment, Moses goes, you know, responds to his Maker, the one who gave him the legs, the head, the mouth.
Exactly.
And He says, you know what, you know, I'm not fluent, in my speech. But you are saying this to the person who actually introduced the words.
Yeah.
You actually, designed the human being, who says the human being is actually going to have a voice.
Yeah.
And this person is assigning you, and you are saying, but how can you send me? I can't speak properly. I can't speak fluently. Nduno kakama.
Yeah.
So that is a big gap now when it comes to us evaluating our purpose, or actually deciding, okay, fine, I think my purpose is this. Sometimes it can have limitations because it's missing that other person who actually knows. And like what you said, God said, you know what? That's not how you're supposed to apply it this way.
Yeah.
And did you get it?
I got it. And that was in 2018. And since then, like, I've seen a lot of, I don't know how many awards I've won. I don't know how many countries I've traveled to, and I'm constantly being invited to talk about purpose to so many young people.
I met you at the Gumi Guru when you were receiving your award.
Exactly.
Day. It was for which category?
For leadership, I think it was. Yeah, it was a leadership.
Inspirational leadership. That's the one I got as well.
Exactly.
Well done.
Thank you. Well done to you too.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So I love that perspective because it is very clear. You need it. So basically, we are moving through the discovery with God, because He is the maker and He is the one who is going to aid in opening that door. So can it change though? Can my purpose change with time?
So I don't think purpose can change, but I do, because I feel like you can have a variety of different things that you're called to do, right? You don't have to necessarily be called to one thing, but where you put your energy is what you must think about. Like, you must always think about, what are people gonna say about me when I'm gone? What is the main agenda? When for example, even when you're running a business, you must always have a goal. Like, what's the ultimate goal? You can't be selling cement and also be selling food and selling carpets and selling light bulbs, and now you're also into this and that and that and that and the other, right? You kind of need to be somebody who has a focus, because what you focus on is what becomes the most successful. And so you find that as much as you might have different things, there's always something that you feel like, this is something that's really important to me. So what I say to people is that after everything is said and done, there's going to be a narrative about you at your funeral. What do you want that narrative to sound like? What do you want people to say about you when you're gone? Because we all know at funerals, people will be saying a lot, chichi, this guy told us those are the types of things that people will be saying about people when they're gone, right? What they remember them for. So you are in charge of what people are going to say by how you live your life. That's the only part of you that's immortal. Everything else is going to go away, right? And so, because we know we're going to die, the only thing that is going to last for us is that legacy. I always give the example of Martin Luther King, and I say, we didn't meet him, we don't know him, we never met him face to face, but we know about him. Today in 2024, we know about Martin Luther King, who was leading a revolution in the 60s, and yet none of us met this man. He's still alive in our hearts, in our minds, everywhere he's alive. His legacy has surpassed him. And so that's what I always say, that we are now determinant. The only thing that we can determine is that narrative, because we are definitely, we're not going to be here forever. So I always say, be intentional about your time here on earth. Be as intentional as possible. If this is all you're going to get, then make it count. Make it count and leave your mark and live fearlessly, because the more fearful you are, the less you're going to live to your fullest, the less happy you're going to be. You can't go back when you're now 50 or 60. Life goes by so quickly. Like, I'm going to be turning 40 in a year. I can't believe I'm turning 40 in a year, right? And in fact, when I started Ignite, I think I was 34, right? Because it's about 5 years now. But in my mind, I'm like, it feels like it was only yesterday when I was in high school, That's how it feels. But that's what shows you that life is like, can just go by like this. And the most important thing is for you to be able to make the most of the time that you have here. So that when you're gone, people will say, wow, you know, Regina did so much. She impacted lives. She changed the lives of girls, or anything that you care about. You know, women were empowered. Those that stay behind are the ones that are going to make sure that your legacy lives beyond your life here on earth. And that's what we're supposed to do. Right? So that's the most important thing.
So what then happens if I do not find my purpose?
The risk of not finding your purpose is living a very unfulfilled, unhappy life. And I think there's a quote that sometimes goes around about Steve Jobs, where he talks about how, for him, though he has done so much and achieved so much, he felt empty, towards the end of his life, right? Because something went wrong somewhere, and he couldn't see where it went wrong, but something lacked for him. He lost something along the way. And so for me, it's like you can be very successful but unhappy. It does not mean that when people are successful they're happy. And I think it's a wrong assumption to think that because someone is doing so well in business or in their life or work or whatever that they're happy. The fulfillment part is where we have an issue right now in our society. So people are going to school, they're getting degrees, and they're going to work, but they're not happy. So this is where the challenge is, right? That unfulfillment is not being addressed by our education system. Because what we're doing is we're saying, as long as you get a degree and you work, you're gonna be okay. But that is not going to result in fulfillment. So what's going to end up happening is you guys as psychologists have a lot of work to do. Because now you have people coming to you and saying, I'm sad, I'm depressed, I'm unfulfilled, I don't know what's wrong. I can't pinpoint, I can't put my finger on it, but nothing is making sense to me. I'm not happy. So now what we're doing is we're giving people employment, but we are not giving them fulfillment. So I actually believe that part of what I'm supposed to do with my purpose is to challenge the education system in the terms of, instead of just telling people kuti endoneta my sciences, my arts, my commercials, how about we kind of move away from that, which is very disruptive, because it's very much the opposite. It's more of, how about if we ask a young person what they want to do and they say, okay, fine, I want to become a doctor. For them, in their mind, it's like, okay, I become a doctor, I make money and I take care of my family. Is that going to result in fulfillment? Is that going to result in happiness? Whenever I've done this activity, those young people who want to be doctors, sometimes they say they don't want to be doctors.
They're just doing it for the money.
They're doing it for the money, or they're doing it because their parents say they should do it.
Exactly, and stability of career anyway. Sometimes we make those decisions.
Exactly. So you find that my role is really to help them to think of, okay, before we go into what you're good at, whether you're a straight A student or whatever, let's start from, what are the things that you want to be remembered for? What are the issues that you care about? Then let's work backwards. Because we need to look at what the big picture is, right? We're starting from skills, talents, education, and then we use that to direct where we're going. But that's not how it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be, what is the big thing first that you want to do? Now let's choose from there, right? What you're going to do to get to that big vision. So for many of them, some of them, they do say, okay, I want to change. I no longer want to do maybe medicine. But some of them say, I do want to do medicine, but initially I just thought that I wanted to do medicine and just make money. But now I'm thinking that I've always had a passion about healthcare systems in rural communities. And now I want to actually do something about the fact that children who are living in rural communities are not getting access to healthcare. So I want to build schools, or I want to build hospitals. So now it's bigger. Like, purpose is a bigger thing. Career is more of like, as long as I go from junior to coordinator to manager to CEO, I'm done. But purpose is like, I've got to build a school. I've got to make sure that I change the healthcare laws. I have to make sure that I advocate for women and so forth. So purpose is a much bigger thing of like, it's a very selfless thing where you're thinking about the gift you're supposed to give the world once you're gone. Yeah,
exactly. And I like what you said about being selfless.
Yeah,
because I also believe that as kids, as we're young, there are other things that drive us besides just, okay, what is it that I think will actually fulfill me or will make me happy or that I'm drawn to in terms of helping. We are mostly influenced by, okay, what are my peers going to say if I am not chosen to get into that science class? They make it a big thing, choosing classes, those that are having high scores, whatever. Sometimes they say, kuma science is at that point, and everyone is just fighting to get into the sciences.
I actually had an issue with my son's teacher recently where she did this thing where she would put like grades in the group. My son is actually very good at maths and he's usually the highest in his class when it comes to maths, but I didn't like it. I didn't like the fact that they were posting like the percentages of children, because that meant that I was now seeing the other kids that were below him that were not doing so well. So I challenged her and she was like, but why are you upset? Your son is actually the one who's doing well. I'm like, exactly, but as a parent, I'm putting myself in the shoes of the other parents, where they're seeing their child's grade being shared with all the other parents. And maybe how is that supposed to make that parent feel? So I was like, how about not sharing the grades in the group? Like, how about just making sure the parents are the ones that know? Because then she's like, well, and I said, exactly, which is why we shouldn't post those grades in the group, right? We shouldn't be talking. So the problem with our society is, because we are focused so much on academic, especially in Zimbabwe, academic achievement is such a big deal. That's why we newspapers 20 points, 30 points, 40 points. 40 points, I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with 40 points. I've got a child who's very good in school. But to be frank with you, I would rather, if I was given a choice between him discovering his purpose and there's nothing to do with his grades, and him doing really well in his grades, I would say let him not do well in his grades and discover his purpose. Because I know that purpose is more important than grades, right? He has to discover his purpose and his calling in life, because that's the only way that he's going to be fulfilled and happy in his life, right? That's the most important thing for my child. The fact whether he gets straight A's or not is not important to me. I'm not going to be like, I want my child to have straight A's, but I want him to find his purpose, his calling, and to be able to be grounded in that and pursue it passionately. Okay,
so you work with youth.
Yes, exactly.
And at what point, after working with so many young people, at what point do you think, okay, this is the point, I think, or the age range, or at least the level of maturity, where we can say, okay, this person can actually make a sound decision about their purpose. I'm looking at it from a point where, this person is actually able to ignore the other drivers that say, you know what, I don't think this job will do well for me because this is what's trending on social media. I would rather be an influencer like Tadzi, posting things, getting awards. I think this looks cool.
Yeah.
But at what point can we say, okay, I think this is the point where someone can actually sit down, avoid all the noises that is happening, or avoid all the noise that is happening within the community, within our society. What is perceived as, this is actually a good purpose, or this is actually a good career, or this is actually, the best way for me to go.
Okay.
And say, I'm actually willing to work as a gardener. If all my prayers are saying, this is the direction for you. Or if my prayers are saying I need to stand in front of the church and preach, that can be really tough depending on where you're coming from.
Yeah.
Or I'm supposed to teach.
Yeah.
When what's trending is being a doctor or getting into this career, and it doesn't look like teaching is something that is paying off in this economy or in our country nowadays, something like that. But yet you've prayed and something is driving you towards that particular. At what point, do you think someone can be sound enough to say, I need to listen to that other voice?
It's a character issue. So some people are more hesitant, some are more clear, more clear on what they want to do. So it's not really about so some people are very headstrong and they're like, look, I know what I want to do, I'm assertive about this. But some people obviously are not going to have the same assertiveness and so might struggle a bit for them to be sure that, okay, let me pursue this. But I do feel that my only advice is that and it's not supposed to be a comparison. So if someone is doing well in business and is thriving in their business, you're not supposed to be saying, "Good, I should be doing business, or maybe I should do business," because that's not your purpose. If your direction is to go komtari, enda komtari, and ukubulawayo mse aende kubulawayo, because mrukuto in different directions, right? If this is why, like even in the Bible, they say that the Israelites were in the wilderness for 40 years because we end up wasting years of our lives chasing things that we are not called to, because we see XYZ is doing this, XYZ is doing that, and now we want to also do it. Like, for example, maybe you've started your business, right? And then I'm like, Regina started, I also want to start. Is that what I'm supposed to do? Then now I'm dropping Ignite, and I'm like, I also want to build, I also want to build a business. I want to sell, a lot of things. So it's not my calling. What happens when I pursue things that are not my calling? I'm frustrated, I'm burnt out, I'm tired, I'm annoyed. I don't know. So when it's not something that you love, it burns you out. But if it's something that you love, it's gonna be fun. You're actually not gonna see the hours going. You'll actually be surprised. Times at opera, it's actually 5 p.m. or 6 p.m. and I've just been working. So that's how it is when you're doing things you love. It doesn't feel forced. It doesn't even feel like you're working. It feels like you're just doing something that you love doing. So I caution people from being from pursuing things just because they are feeling like this thing is something that I should do. Okay, let me do this. But in terms of the pivot, I think that there are some young people who know what they want to do. But I would say that as they are transitioning from high school to college, that's a good time to catch them and talk to them and to help them, to direct them. Because usually what they're going to choose in terms of combination or degree is based on what they've been told. So I think that transition there is important. I feel that when someone is still in their teenagers and in their early 20s, they are not yet sure, right? They might think, okay, this is what I want to do, but they might not be sure at that point that this is what they're going to do. Sometimes you've got to go through like what I went through, where you get into your 30s and you're still trying to discover yourself. That's when you're like, I've tried everything. Literally, I've gone and worked for these companies, I've done this, and I'm not happy. So it differs based on circumstances, but I would say that the best time to start talking to them about purpose is in high school, especially Form 4, when they're going into A-levels, when they want to choose their combination, and then after high school, when they're going into college, so that they choose the right degree or the right path. Because that transition, this is where it usually becomes problematic, because maybe munaiko na commercials, not necessarily because I doubt my commercials that's what they were passionate about, but because that's what they were good at. So they chose commercials. After commercials, they then became an accountant, and now they're working. And now they've been working maybe 3-4 years, and now they're like, I hate this job. So I think we need to catch them high school into college to guide them, because during that time there's a lot of voices, parents' voices, friends, your own personal voice. So it's still very difficult for you to find a path. Unfortunately, for many of us, we only discover our purpose after we start working. That's when we discover, I don't like this. It's unfortunate, but we're trying to change that by making sure that we start early so we can guide them early.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So is there a point where someone is actually within their purpose, like they are where they're supposed to, but they are unfulfilled because they are looking outside?
So it can happen, because what ends up happening is that comparison. I don't think that purpose can be unfulfilling, right? The idea with purpose is that it's actually supposed to be fulfilling.
Okay.
If it's unfulfilling, then I don't think it's your purpose, because purpose is supposed to be something that you're passionate about and that is easy for you to do. It shouldn't be something that's burdensome. Otherwise, if it becomes burdensome, then it cannot be your purpose, right? God cannot give you something that's going to be burdensome for you, something you hate. If you look at all the people that were called in the Bible, they were called to things that they were passionate about, right? Every single one of them were passionate about the issue that they were doing. Even Jesus Christ was passionate about it. So you've got to be passionate about the issue. Otherwise, it cannot be a burden of like, I just want to do this. I just want to be part of this thing. It's draining me. It cannot be your purpose then, because there is no example in the Bible where someone has got a specific calling and they're like, I hate this, I don't like this. Many of the people that were called actually were passionate about the issues that they were called to. Moses was passionate about making sure that he freed his people. It was something he cared about. He even killed an Egyptian, right? He hated the slavery that the Israelites were under to such an extent that he wanted to free them. And the passion is always intense. Even the same with David. David was passionate about his people. He was passionate about fighting for his people. And he was a great leader. And that's how he became a king. So if we look at the examples in the Bible, the people that were called, God intentionally gave them things that they cared about, right? Things that they were like, this is an issue. We need to fix this, right? So I don't think that you can actually get a calling that's not, that you don't like. Otherwise, it cannot be a calling. Cannot be a purpose. Yeah, but some people do find themselves in their purpose. Like by default, maybe you naturally chose the things that you liked and were passionate about, and then you just find yourself there in your purpose. Yeah.
Okay, and so at what age are we talking about where we're saying at least by this age, or you should know? Is there an age you should have direction, or you should know what your purpose is?
So I think it's good to start early and to get to know your purpose early, even from high school, college, that age group, from Form 4 upwards until college. I think that's a good time to discover your purpose, because the only reason why it benefits you to discover your purpose earlier is because you live a more fulfilled life. You start living a more fulfilled life earlier, and you start pursuing it earlier, so you are going to achieve your goals faster. I mean, you're going to achieve them faster because you started earlier. Now, there's no specific time where you can discover your purpose, because, for example, the guy who started KFC actually discovered his purpose when he was in his 60s, right? He actually started KFC in his 60s. He had always been a business person. He had always been like he had changed a lot of jobs over his lifetime, and been trying to look for something that was fulfilling to him for a long time. And then when he started KFC, he was 60, and KFC became such an amazing and big business. It's all over the world now. So I feel like there's no specific age that you can say this is when you should discover your purpose, but you should discover it whichever case. Even if you discover it in your 70s, I think I was supposed to do this. Do it then, even if what you have is only 5 years left to your life. But that 5 years is going to make an impact and a difference to some extent. I just encourage people to discover it from whatever age they're at, and moving forward.
So we've got a situation where we have someone like Cristiano Ronaldo. They're at the peak of their career. Not now, okay? They're at the peak of their career, and they are strongly believing that, you know what, I have found my purpose. Or people like Serena Williams or Messi, you know, we know them for something. And then he breaks his leg at that moment. He's still young, maybe at 28, 24, thereabouts. Like, and they're told that they will never play football again. Like, what does that entail when it comes to purpose?
So I think it's sometimes God can bring us into a situation where we are tested in terms of how much we trust His will, that He is still going to be good, and He's still going to use the purpose that He gave us to fulfill the things that He wants us to do on this earth. For example, Samson, he got blind, right? He had so much strength and everything, but when he lost his sight, he probably thought, that's it, right? What else am I going to do? What good am I without my sight? But somehow, even in that situation where he found himself he lost his hair. It was cut by that woman, what's her name? Delilah, is it? Was it Delilah? I think so. Anyway,
Delilah.
So you find that when that happens, God is making us trust him, because sometimes we become, your purpose can, just like Moses, it can make you think that everything that's happening is because of you and your skill and your talent and your brilliance and your capacity, but then you forget that it's actually God that gave you that gift. And so sometimes God puts us or tests us in situations where we're supposed to always look back to him, to say, you are the giver of the gift, you help me to navigate. So when something like that happens, you pivot according to what God wants you to do. Cristiano has inspired millions of people around the world. Maybe it's time for him to become a coach, right, to other upcoming soccer players. Maybe it's time for him to start an academy. Maybe it's time for him to travel the world and do something else that is still inclined to his purpose, but not him playing on the field. And so what he's known for is that he's excellent at what he does, but he's inspired young people who never thought that they could get to that point, that they can actually get to that point. So I always say to young people that when what you thought was supposed to happen doesn't happen according to what you had planned, then it's a moment where God is calling us to pay attention to him and to listen to what he's saying. So I would say that things can happen in between of discovery of purpose, but take note that Moses was told that he should what? He should speak to the rock, but what did he do? He struck it.
Yeah, I've always believed that purpose is more than what you do.
Exactly.
Because when you're looking at what you just said about Cristiano Ronaldo having inspired so many people, so sometimes what you do is just but a medium, an instrument.
Yeah.
For you to fulfill like whatever it is that has been your assignment at that particular time. So if it's leadership, the leadership is not a purpose.
No.
Because that's just a role that is enabling you to actually, carry out the purpose, fulfill that purpose, or live within that purpose, or even inspire other people to realize their own purposes, which could be your purpose.
Yeah, exactly.
Like the work that you do, Tadzi. If someone takes away your Facebook platform or whatever it is, the platforms that have been opened to you,
exactly.
it's the same way that you break your leg. But yet we're thinking, okay, my purpose was to play soccer, this is what I know, or my purpose was to play tennis, this is what I know. But when you are on that hospital bed and you think, so what is to become of me?
Yeah.
It can be limiting because we are now thinking your purpose is aligned to this platform or this act that was actually enabling you to inspire millions, to help them fulfill or find their purpose, or to even have courage. Sometimes our purpose is to just be there and help people to just think about how things that we believe are impossible can actually be possible. You spoke about Martin Luther King. I don't think his purpose was to stand in front of people and just orate, but it was to inspire, to even give courage. Because now we talk about him. Whenever you want to inspire someone, whenever you want to encourage someone to actually take a leap, do something that is different from the norm, challenge the status quo, we talk about these people, but the bigger picture is really they inspired courage, they inspired change, that's the bigger thing. But they did do that through the actions. So we should not feel stuck when it looks like, oh my goodness, I've lost my job. Then what?
It's not about you. It's not about you. Like, it's about the calling. It's about what you're called to do. And so when we now hold on, so when you start pursuing your purpose, it's easy for you. Like, for me, it's easy for me to feel like I always have to constantly get myself back to why I started. Because what ends up happening is, with all the awards that you'll be winning and all the recognitions and all of the travel, you'll be like, wow, I'm so great, I'm doing such a great job. And now all of a sudden, you're no longer thinking about why you were put in that position to begin with. So you were not put in that position to win awards. right? You were not put in that position for you to travel the world. You were put in that position to help people to discover their purpose. So what ends up happening is that if I lose like the reason why I'm doing it, God might put a challenge or test me or a trial that is supposed to get me to focus back on why he gave me. Because that's why the devil came and tempted Jesus and said to him, I'll give you all of this if you just bow down to me. Because he was literally saying to him, it's about you. I'm making it about you now. Don't you want to be glorified? Don't you want to be? And then Jesus was like, no, get away from me, Satan. It's not about me. It's about the calling that I'm supposed to pursue. He could have become great, this amazing king, owning everything, because the devil had offered him that. So we need to be careful that the gift of the calling that we've been given takes over our identity, and then we are now thinking, oh my goodness, I'm just this amazing person.
Oh, I'm just this amazing soccer player.
Exactly.
the best
soccer player in the world. I'm and then when that happens, now it's like a humbling moment where you now realize that the gift was given by God. And it's not like something that I just gave myself. So it's now time for me to refocus back on the gift.
Okay. So I've got 2 questions that we posted on our social media platform. I'm just going to read them out and you can briefly comment. I'm a lady who is now almost turning 40 years and I still haven't figured out my purpose. I've worked for different companies and never enjoyed the corporate environment. So I left and started doing my own thing. I have done chickens. I've done sewing, horticulture, and now I have a tuck shop, but none of it looks like my purpose. The only thing that is working in my life is my marriage and kids, but personally I feel so unfulfilled and lost. Please help me understand more about purpose.
Okay. So I think it's a very, this is not just her on her own. So the first thing I would say to her is, she shouldn't feel like she's the only person who's experiencing this, right? It's normal for her to feel like this at this stage in her life, because she's done everything, she's explored everything, and now she's like, but something is missing. Which is what I was saying about purpose, that for many people, they think it's like, I went through it too, where I just thought that if I work and I get money and I get paid well, I'm going to be happy. And so for many people, it's that light bulb moment where they're like, what? I'm actually not happy. So what I would say to her is that, because I do actually also have a program that I work with people that are in their midlife, and they're sort of like, it's called Bouncing Back from Midlife Career Crisis. And in that program, what I focus on is people who are like in their 30s, 40s and going upwards, who are feeling like, I think I made a mistake, I'm not happy, something is missing, because they've already gone through like the high school and college, and unfortunately no one actually sat them down like what I do with the youth and help them to navigate their careers. What I say to people like her is, you have an advantage in the sense that you have gone through your life, you know what you like and what you don't like, you are aware of the fact that something is lacking, so you're in a better position now than at an earlier stage for you to know to be more, you're wiser, right? You're wiser because you've had experiences, so you kind of know what works for you and what doesn't. I would say to her that she needs to discover her purpose and not be afraid of discovering it and pursuing it. But it's gonna start with her praying first and making sure that she's connecting with God, because, and you know what, the Bible says that whoever comes to God must believe that he is able to do what we are asking him to do. Because if you go to God doubting, you're not going to get the answer. You've got to go there believing that he's going to do what you're asking him of him. So if she's going to pray, she's going to need to pray with that aspect of, God is going to answer me. He's going to answer me on this. It might not be a loud booming voice of this is your purpose, but people around you will start telling you, you need to, how about you try this? Maybe you're good at that, etc. The second thing I recommend is that she looks for a mentor. Now, like in the Bible, for example, Esther had Mordecai. Mordecai saw that Esther had a calling, and he told her that you were put in this position for such a time as this. So sometimes you need someone like a Mordecai in your life who speaks into your life and says they see the reason why you were put where you were put. And that's what she needs. She needs a Mordecai or someone, a mentor, someone who can say to her, whether it's a pastor or a friend or someone who is like a spiritual leader, but someone who sits down with her and says to her, you know what, I really feel like this is where you should probably think about where you're going. That person can speak into her life. And then the last thing is she needs to go through a self-discovery process. The self-discovery process is what we spoke about, which is to ask herself some questions. What are the things that I care about? What are the things that I would hate when I leave this world to see them still continuing? Like if I die and these things are not like addressed even to a small extent, I would be so hurt. Because, for example, maybe you might think, I don't want to die without these issues about children living on the streets fixed. Someone needs to do something about this. I don't want to leave the earth without these issues to do with, access to healthcare, without them being fixed. So she needs to discover what those issues are that she cares about so much. Then once she knows what is the mark, what are people going to say about her when she's gone, what does she want them to say about her when she's gone, then she now needs to start working backwards. Which is like, what skills, what education, what talent, what gifts does she have that are going to help her to achieve that goal? So I always say to people that I'm very good at marketing, but I'm not called to be a marketer. Marketing is a skill, right? And sometimes what ends up happening is we get stuck on the skill and think that the skill is the calling, but the skill is not your calling. The skill is a tool that God has given you in order to help you to fulfill your purpose. So for many people, they're stuck in these titles, accountant, marketer, whatever. But that's a skill. It's a qualification. It's not your calling. Your calling, for me, for example, in my case, my calling is to help young people discover their purpose and pursue it with passion. That's what I'm supposed to do. Marketing helps me in the sense that I'm able to market and talk about Ignite Youth Organization. I'm able to create branding and so forth. I don't do it as much now anymore because there's someone who does it. But it's a skill that I was given. I must have skills that God has given me to make sure that this purpose is fulfilled. Being a public speaker is not my calling, but it's a skill that I use to pursue my purpose. So she now needs to look at the things that even the qualifications that she's gained. She shouldn't throw away those qualifications and say, because everything that you have learned can help you in your pursuit, because you can find somewhere where to fit it. If we're gonna get accounts, and when you get donor funding, now your accounts comes in place, and now you can actually go over the books and know what to say. So what I encourage her to do is answer that question third, which is after prayer and finding a mentor, a spiritual, someone who can talk to her. She needs to answer the questions of what do I want to be remembered for? What legacy do I want to leave behind? If she answers those questions, then she works backwards from there.
Okay, right. And then another one says, I still need help in your people's album. Unlike others, I don't even know what I am good at. I've been a housemaid for 4 years. I didn't even write my O levels. I just like reading romance novels. Anna Sidney Sheldon, Daniel Steele. Toita basa fast kuti. Sorry, did I skip something? Okay, I've been a housemaid for 4 years, alright. Toita basa fast kuti ndiwane mukana wekuzoverenga ma novels, of which akazara pano ende vanondibvumidza kumaverenga. Handifungi kuti mabooks O level ndichakwanisa kumasunda, asi ndogara ndichizvibvunza kuti ndinosvika kupi nekupedza nguva ndichiverenga romance, although mama vandinoshandira tells me that my English is very good because of the reading. However, shinondishita kupi izvi, I don't want to be a maid forever. I don't know if you got that because my Shona reading skills.
Yeah. Well, I'm really glad that she's actually because as I said, everyone has a purpose, right? It doesn't matter who it is, whether it's someone who's working as a garden boy, a driver, or someone who's a CEO. But the most important thing is for you to discover your unique path and not compare. The problem is like we see you, but calling you is for you to be a gardener. And because you know what? How am I going to now come down to doing this? Maybe you should become a landscaper or something of that sort because you love it and because you've got the financial capacity to do it, right? And part of you doing the landscaping is also you being part of the team that does the landscaping. But the whole idea of what I'm trying to say is that, like when she says that she's just a maid, first and foremost, you know, she needs to understand that where God has put her right now, she shouldn't look down upon herself to say, what am I going to do? She has a calling and she has a gift and she has a purpose. Just like everybody else, just like the woman that she works for. She has a calling, she has a gift, and she has a purpose. She has a talent that she's not recognizing, which is the fact that she loves to read. And now the question is, in what intrigues her with the reading? Like what are the stories doing that she finds interesting? Because that's where we can get some of the answers in terms of what her purpose is. I feel that people who love to read could become writers because you're so interested in the stories that maybe she's supposed to be a writer. Maybe that's what she's supposed to do because she's intrigued by the stories. And in her mind, this is perfect. Or she could be a teacher or a lecturer, right? Because she's into reading. So, and imagine, since she loves reading so much, maybe imagine if that's what her career was mostly focused on. So what I would say is, for someone like her, right, I believe that, yeah, being a maid. I actually have, I once had this other maid who was very good at she loved to cook. What she used to do is she always used to come up with recipes. Like she was very creative on her own. I never used to ask her, and I'm like, what are we eating today? And she'd be like, I tried something new. She'd be like taking things, ingredients, what, she'd mix it up and create something that was always so unique, so creative. She never actually just prepared like the basic food. She always was very creative. What I said to her was, you're not supposed to remain a maid because you're good at cooking. I'm gonna pay for you to go to do cooking classes, and I want you to eventually pursue this because you love cooking. You're literally always telling me, tenga soy sauce, tenga cheese, and what, because you love cooking. You're always creative with the meals that you prepare, and you can't start and end like this. Unfortunately, the guy that she was dating had a different idea, and he wanted to marry her. So then she's like, and did I end up with for cooking because I'm getting married? And I was very disappointed because I knew that that was what she was supposed to do. So with this same lady, I feel that she could become a writer or a lecturer or a teacher, and she could even become a teacher in literature where, you know, you critique books and novels and things like that because that's what she loves. And in doing that, she's empowering children, she's educating the next generation. So that's her calling, right? Her calling is not to be a maid. Her calling is maybe to educate the next generation or to write stories that inspire people, just the same way as those books inspire her. Yeah,
I like that. So basically, so we've come to the end of our discussion, I should say that. But I really like the discussion because, you know, when it comes to passion, I strongly believe, when it comes to purpose, I strongly believe that the bearer of the ultimate purpose is really the maker.
Yeah.
And when we look at things like careers, maid, gardener, CEO,
yeah,
I feel like those are things that we created.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, as humans.
Yeah.
And so when it comes to purpose, it should go beyond that.
It should.
Really. It should go beyond that because, you know, there's a bigger person who created this. So it's something that is actually bigger than that. But when we're saying big, we're not saying big in the context of the amount of money in your bank account. And that is where we get it so wrong.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
To CEO, that's a good one.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
Or something that makes sure that, you know, I've got that bank account. That is like secondary.
It is.
Because at the end of the day, whatever you are doing, as long as you are adding value, you are serving your maker.
Yeah.
You are a vessel. You are allowing yourself to be used as a maid. So you are a maid, right? you are taking care of your kids. So she said kuti ndinotomanya kuita basa fast kuti ndiende kunoverenga manovels, which is still fine.
Yeah.
But I always feel like what you said, wherever you are placed, wherever you are, you need to ensure that you're adding value within whatever you are doing.
Yeah.
And yes, you are passionate and you are being allowed, meaning, you know, whatever you're doing, you work-wise, that's adding value.
Yeah.
But let us focus more on what is it that I can do to make whatever it is that I'm working on better. Better serve the community, better serve my Lord as a vessel, as an instrument. So you've got your platform, Ignite Youth, and I think, you know, you've been doing a good job at looking away from your own needs. Like when you were applying, you had to set aside your own needs and your own expectations, your own thoughts of what is actually viable for you when it comes to the word success. And you obeyed. So obedience is one of the major issues.
It is.
And sometimes you know you've been given a platform, because I just got ever quoting kana wanzi urkushanda at this company and it's unfulfilling. It doesn't mean that should be in vain. As you are as you're looking for your purpose, you need to make sure that whatever platform that has been thrust upon you, which is your work environment, that boss that you don't like, whatever, you know, there is an area for you to actually better serve and add value, as long as you just ignore the norms.
Exactly.
But this is the way it's supposed to be, and enjoy your space wherever you are. Enjoy your work. I mean, just find a way to add value, and also just have joy in that particular space. As you look for your next assignment, or you pray to God for your next assignment, because sometimes, you know, we are in positions of training. You can imagine Moses was
he had
a
to
shepherd.
serve. He had to serve.
He was a shepherd when God called him.
So sometimes there is a process that we need to go through, but only God knows what the process is and how long it will take. Because Joseph's path is different from David's path, is different from Samson's path, is different from Moses' path, because they're all different. The age at which Joseph found his calling is different from the age that Moses found his, because your path is yours, and sometimes even those challenges that you do face along the way are supposed to prune you and help you so that you become a better person. And even if you do discover it earlier, you're still going to go through the pruning, because God is never going to just let you get from 0 to hero without helping, fixing, because there's certain personality, character traits that need to be addressed before we get to the place that God wants us to really be.
Exactly, because when you look at even Moses, when he attacked that and killed that man, you will find that there are certain qualities that he may lack. That was not the time. There was an issue of patience. There was an issue of, you know what, doing things right, etc. And the work of being a shepherd, it takes patience.
Resilience.
It takes resilience. And it's also a leadership training ground.
Yes.
You know, it also takes courage, because this is the wilderness we're talking about. So you will find that when God then approached him, he was ready, although, you know, his calling, it was still the same at birth. As when he was called by God. But it was just a matter of time and season. And at that time, God knew he was ready. You understand? So I also believe that whatever platform we have, let's exhaust, let's make the most out of it. Let's show God, you know what, you can trust me with this one. You can trust me here. And when God can trust you there, he can trust you there, wherever he wants to take you. So let's be very trustworthy with whatever it is and whatever season we are. That's what I just wanted to say before we close. But
thank you so
I'll also
much.
leave you to say something before we go. You might want to add something.
Okay, so I guess I just wanted to say, like, especially to those who are watching, you know, that don't feel like it's too late for you to discover your purpose, right? Because purpose is a unique journey. Right, it's unique in every sense. The journey is different, the experiences are different, everything about what you go through is different. And so also the purpose in itself will be different. That's why you cannot compare oranges to apples. That's exactly what purpose is. So when you see someone else thriving in one area, be happy and celebrate for them, because that's what they're supposed to do. That shows that when you do start pursuing your purpose, success is guaranteed with God within that area. So I just encourage people that it's never too late. Like the lady who's almost 40, I say to her, you know what, it's never too late for you to start pursuing your purpose. The most important thing is for you to start, right? That's what matters. The fact that, you know, you're now almost 40 and what, that's now just like, that doesn't even matter. What matters is that you start and you start pursuing it and you're bold in that. So I'm just encouraging people to start that process of discovering their purpose at any age that they're at. Yeah.
And you know, this lady said something really that spoke to me now that you just mentioned it. She said, everything is not working in my life except for my marriage and my kids. Do you know that's a very important assignment?
It is.
Because some of us are here to give birth to presidents.
Yeah, exactly. And to raise presidents.
Them. To just be, you get what I'm saying?
Exactly, yeah.
So let's not underestimate any role, any opportunity, any gift that God has given to us, because marriage itself, kids themselves, they're gifts from God.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's also something to look into, because sometimes it could be related to that aspect of your life that's actually working.
Exactly.
And God is saying, this is where you're supposed to go. This is the direction.
Yeah.
You know, look at this, you know, and before you know it, you are doing amazing things from that. Some people are now marriage coaches.
Yeah.
You
exactly.
know?
Yeah.
Some people.
That's true. And they might not even. Like Mary, you know, her purpose was to give birth to Jesus Christ, right? And so, like, as you said, some, you know, don't look down on being, I'm just a housewife. What am I supposed to do with my life? As you said, maybe you're supposed to actually raise up these kids. Your absence will actually be detrimental to these kids and what they're called to do.
And maybe that's why everything else is not working.
Exactly.
In the first place.
Exactly. Because you're supposed to focus on that. Exactly.
And that's why it's working.
Exactly. So you need to pray about it. And it comes from a place of prayer, and look at so you can't compare oranges to apples. So you can't say, I'm a housewife, and then you're comparing yourself to a businesswoman who's running maybe a big corporation. Your purpose is yours and her purpose is hers. Be satisfied with what you have been given by God, because he knows what he's doing. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much.